Welcome back to our channel, where we gather to explore the intricate, ever-evolving lives of the residents of Port Charles. For those of us who have dedicated decades to watching the trials and tribulations of General Hospital, we know that family dynamics in Port Charles are never simple. We have witnessed generations love, betray, and ultimately destroy one another in the name of protection. As a longtime viewer and critic, I find myself deeply captivated by the current storyline involving Nina Reeves, Willow Kane, and Michael Corinthos. It is a narrative that strikes at the very heart of maternal desperation and the toxic legacy of the Quartermaine and Corinthos families. The recent revelations have completely flipped the script, transforming victims into master manipulators and turning supposed protectors into prime suspects. It is a brilliant, albeit heartbreaking, evolution of characters we have grown to care for over the years. To truly understand the gravity of this situation, we must first examine the terrifying incident that set this entire chain of events into motion. The image of Willow falling asleep on Nina.us sofa after consuming a drugged latte is chilling, especially when we consider the catastrophic tragedy that was narrowly avoided. Willow had been planning to take little Wiley and Amelia to the local arcade. Had that sedative taken effect while she was behind the wheel of her car with her precious children in the back seat, we would be looking at a devastating, fatal outcome. The sheer horror of that realization is enough to shatter any mother's psyche. It is this profound sense of vulnerability and near loss that fundamentally shifts Willow's perspective, pushing her away from her traditionally forgiving nature and straight into a realm of ruthless self-preservation. When a mother believes her children were almost killed due to the reckless actions of those around her, she becomes capable of anything. The catalyst for this near tragedy, of course, is Jacinda Bracken. The events of the episode broadcast on Tuesday, August the 11th, provided a masterclass in chaotic soap opera drama. Michael, breaking up with Jacinda, only for Nina to intervene, created a pressure cooker of resentment. Jacinda, in a tearful and desperate ultimatum, confessed to Michael that she was the one who tampered with Willow's drink. What makes this detail so incredibly sinister for longtime viewers is the specific substance she used. It was the exact same drug she administered to Drew Kane over a year ago. This callback not only establishes Jacinda as a repeat offender with a signature method, but also weaves a complex web of continuity that rewards our long-term investment in the show. Jacinda.us confession sent Michael into an absolute panic, prompting him to abandon everything and rush to stop Willow from driving under the influence. However, Michael's frantic attempt to play the hero ultimately became his undoing. In his desperate rush to secure Wiley and Amelia and bring them back to the Quartermaine house, Michael made a critical, life-altering error. He left the half-empty, drugged latte sitting in the trash at Nina.us place. For a man who was allegedly preparing to aggressively alter his custody agreement with Willow, this was a moment of shocking carelessness. We have watched Michael grow up, often adopting the arrogant belief that his Quartermaine wealth and Corinthos' ruthlessness make him untouchable. Yet, in this moment of genuine panic, he failed to cover his tracks. He forgot to pour the remainder of the tainted beverage down the drain, unwittingly handing his greatest enemy the very weapon she needed to destroy him. This brings us to Nina Reeves, a character whose desperate yearning for her daughter's love has often led her down dark, morally ambiguous paths. When Nina found Willow asleep and seemingly intervened, she recognized a golden opportunity. Willow awoke with no memory of how she fell asleep or what had transpired. We can deduce that Nina was already aware of the situation, perhaps having received a frantic phone call from Michael himself, who would not have wanted Willow left alone and vulnerable in her drugged state. But instead of acting as a neutral party, Nina sees the narrative. She is a master of manipulation, not necessarily by fabricating lies out of thin air, but by taking a kernel of truth and twisting it to serve her own desperate needs. Nina recognized that with Jacinda either gone, missing, or potentially even dead, there was a massive vacuum of accountability. Someone had to take the fall for drugging Willow, and Nina seamlessly placed the blame squarely onto Michael's shoulders. She convinced Willow that Michael, in a sinister bid to win their impending custody battle and prove Willow an unfit mother, had intentionally spiked her drink. To a disoriented, traumatized Willow, this narrative makes terrifying sense. She already knew Michael was maneuvering to change their custody arrangement, a move she was fiercely resisting. They were already at war over the children. Nina's U.S. explanation provided a logical, albeit horrifying, motive for Michael's U.S. supposed actions. Furthermore, Nina had the physical evidence to back up her claims. By retrieving the discarded latte cup from the trash and having it analyzed, Nina secured undeniable proof that the drink was indeed laced with the very same substance used on Drew Cain. I must admit, while I am appalled by Nina's willingness to frame Michael for a crime he did not commit, I am equally fascinated by the psychological brilliance of her plan. She has effectively isolated Willow from Michael, ensuring that Willow has no one else to trust but her mother. It is a twisted form of maternal protection, born out of Nina's deep-seated trauma of losing so many years with her daughters. She is doing the wrong thing for what she believes are the right reasons, a classic trope that General Hospital executes flawlessly. Willow, left with no alternative and holding the undeniable toxicology report, has no choice but to believe Nina's U.S. version of events. The climax of this manipulation culminated in an absolutely stunning confrontation at the Quartermaine mansion. Watching Michael stand completely paralyzed with shock as Willow arrived was a moment of pure, unadulterated television drama. Willow did not just arrive with accusations. She arrived with a legally binding restraining order. She made it unequivocally clear that she was there solely to claim her children, pointedly emphasizing her exclusive maternal rights and stripping Michael of any shared parental identity in that moment. The severity of this legal maneuver cannot be overstated. This is not just a piece of paper keeping Michael at bay. It is an ironclad mandate that prevents anyone in the entire Quartermaine family from coming within a 5-block radius of Wiley and Amelia. This drastic action by Willow sends shockwaves through the very foundation of the Quartermaine legacy. For decades, we have watched the Quartermaines use their immense wealth and influence to dictate the terms of family and custody. They are accustomed to winning, to bulldozing anyone who stands in their way. Seeing them legally barred from their own grandchildren by a woman they once viewed as a sweet, malleable schoolteacher is a profound shift in power dynamics. Willow is no longer the passive victim we once knew. She is weaponizing the legal system with a ruthlessness that mirrors the very families she is fighting against. It is impossible to ignore the striking parallels between Willow's current actions and the past behavior of Drew Cain. Longtime viewers will recall when Drew took extreme, aggressive measures to secure a restraining order against Danny Morgan, effectively isolating him from Scout Cain. Willow is adopting this exact same scorched earth tactic. It raises a fascinating question about the cyclical nature of trauma in Port Charles. Do the residents of this town inevitably become the very monsters they once feared? Willow is acting out of a desperate need to protect her children, but by imposing such a draconian separation, she is inflicting deep emotional wounds on everyone involved, including the children themselves. As a critic, I find myself deeply conflicted. Part of me cheers for Willow finally standing up and reclaiming her agency, refusing to be a pawn in Michael's U.S. custody games. However, another part of me mourns the loss of her moral compass. The Willow we are seeing now is embracing a new, dark persona, engaging in actions that border on criminal manipulation, even if she believes she is acting on the truth. Her willingness to tear a family apart based on Nina's orchestrated evidence shows a terrifying evolution of her character. But what if there is an even deeper, more sinister layer to this tragedy? We must consider the tantalizing theory that Michael himself might be the victim of a slow, deliberate poisoning. Over the past several months, we have witnessed Michael exhibiting increasingly obsessive, erratic, and uncharacteristically reckless behavior. While it is easy to chalk this up to his inherent Corinthos temper and Quartermaine arrogance, what if he is under the influence of a subtle toxin? If Jacinda, or perhaps an unseen adversary, has been dosing Michael, It would explain his recent downward spiral and his catastrophic mishandling of the Jacinda situation. If this theory holds true, it adds a layer of profound tragedy to the current events. Michael, acting under the influence of a mind-altering substance, is being framed for a crime he tried to prevent, while his family is ripped away from him by a wife who is being manipulated by her own mother. This potential twist makes the explosion of Willow's new, dark actions all the more devastating. She is burning down her life and Michael's life based on a foundation of lies and unseen chemical warfare. Jacinda is no longer in the picture to offer a confession or clear Michael's name, and even if she were, she would never willingly incriminate herself for the drugging of both Willow and Drew. Michael is completely trapped in a web of circumstantial evidence, his own past arrogance, and Nina's masterful deception. Where does this leave our beloved characters? It leaves them in a state of absolute ruin, which, as any seasoned soap opera fan knows, is exactly where the best drama begins. We are witnessing the complete deconstruction of Michael Corinthos and the dark rebirth of Willow Kane. Will Willow eventually discover that her mother manipulated her into destroying her family? And if she does, will she ever be able to forgive Nina or even forgive herself for the extreme measures she took? The answers to these questions will undoubtedly shape the future of Port Charles for years to come. Ultimately, this storyline is a tragic reminder that in the quest to protect the ones we love, we often cause the most irreparable harm.